Yeah. Look, Wrestling 101, classes in session. Pay attention to the teachings, that's from Andrew and Derek. I mean, these guys making a killing with no competition. Dynamic duo better than the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. Everybody make some noise, mess with them, you get destroyed. They cannot be beat, take a seat. Watch them do they thing on the MIC. Face defeat, they cannot be seen like JC. Oh my goodness, it's a killing spree.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chad Minutes from Standalone Wrestling, Pro Wrestling After Dark, Boardwalk Beatdown, and BeTheTrifecta.com. You are listening to the best podcast on the planet, Wrestling IQ 101.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew alongside Derek.
You.
And you can follow Wrestling IQ 101 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And today we're sitting with the retrosexual, the Uncle Jesse of professional wrestling, and you're welcome, Retro AG Anthony Greene. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh man, we're doing great, man. We're talking to you. You know, we're going to talk a little bit, talk about your career and things that that you're into.
Career? I wouldn't call it that.
Sounds about right.
So, Anthony, we met at Synergy a couple of times, and you've been on a roll there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And most recently, too, I mean, you debuted at CCW. I mean, what does it feel like to finally get, some more exposure and getting more out of New England?
So even early on in my career, I've been very fortunate to be able to travel outside of the area. There's a lot of wrestlers that just like to stick to their area. If you're from New Jersey, you only stick to Jersey. If you're from Mass, a lot of guys only wrestle in Massachusetts or stay very close. I've been lucky enough to travel outside. I've gone to the West Coast. I've been to the Midwest, down south, and stuff like that. But being able to work for a place like CZW with such a worldwide outreach, with way more fans, way more eyes on them in Germany and England, Canada, Japan. Everyone's watching CZW. And last year I made CZW a goal of mine to make sure that was a place that I worked. So I'm just really excited. Right now during this time, I think pro wrestling for fans and for professional wrestlers is at its absolute peak right now. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Nice. Now, do you think, because I think you have an awesome, character. Do you think, your character and, all that you put into, just everything that goes into it has been, a big factor in helping you get to where you've been?
100%. Not sure how familiar you guys are with what I was doing before Retrosexual AG, but I was just all good Anthony Greene, happy-go-lucky, good guy or bad guy, very generic, very vanilla. I was basically unexplained wrestler in trunks. Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, with help from my trainer and somebody else, they said, you're not the biggest guy. You're not the most jacked. You don't look like Brian Cage. You're not as athletic as a Ricochet or a Flip Gordon or anyone like that. You're good at a lot of things. And the thing that you're probably great at is you're very charismatic and you have good character. So what can we put together to really accentuate your biggest positives? So then I kind of just threw it out there in our little group chat. I said, well, what if I did this? Or what if I called myself the Retrosexual? And just with the name, I had an idea of what I wanted to be. And I'll tell you right now, when I debuted at Beyond Wrestling on New Year's Eve last year, I still wasn't really sure the exact vision, and I kind of just jumped into it way earlier than I was even ready for. But I'm so glad I did, because as I kept doing it, I kept trying new things, seeing what worked and seeing what didn't. So now, even though I started it before I was ready, I think I'm more ready than ever. And I think that's helped a lot, with the look, the mustache, and the sideburns. And I started coming out with Zubaz pants, and then I said, everyone has Zubaz, but what don't people have? They don't have tearaway Zubaz pants. Or what if I ordered these glasses that looked like Macho Man's? And then I said, well, what if instead of buying rip-off Macho Man glasses, what if I just got custom ones with my name on them? And I just kept evolving into newer, cooler things that no one else was doing. And I think that made me unique, even though the character is basically just like a 1980s like jobber from like NWA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the thing I love about you, man, like the video packages, it's kind of like Joey Ryan meet Joey Janela meet like Rick Rude, and it's just like one awesome package, man. And I love watching you go out there and wrestle. Did you
Thank
take
you.
some? You know, I mean, recently you got in the ring with Joey Ryan. Did you take any of those influences from them at all?
So I get that a lot. Like, oh yeah, like I'll have like fans online say you're just a Joey Janela ripoff, or you're just a Joey Ryan ripoff, or this, that, and the other. Honestly, with the original idea, it was never to copy anyone. I can see where people get the Joey Ryan because I have a hairy chest and I have a mustache, but at the same time, like, the first person I asked about the gimmick when I debuted it, he was at Joey Ryan was at the show, and I asked him, "What can I do to completely to not tread on your waters? What can I do to not cross the line and be Joey Ryan-esque?" And basically, he said, "As long as I'm not flipping people with my penis, I look different. I look different enough that no one's gonna." To really put us two together as often. And when it comes to Joey Janela, though I personally don't think I stole anything from him. He's never said anything to me like, "Hey man, that's very similar to me." The only thing him and I have in common really is we both have beautiful blonde girlfriends and we both have really handsome faces. Other than that, I don't see much of a similarity between him and I, especially wrestling wise. He wrestles completely different than I do. He's more, I'm not going to say a hardcore guy because he's not a hardcore guy, but he's very much into bigger stunts, and I feel like I play more into character work.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when it comes to retrosexual, for our fans that are listening, tell them what that actually means to you.
So that's another thing that's a big misconception is people think retrosexual or retrosexuality, the gimmick is sleazy and almost like a heartthrob, and I just want to have intercourse with a bunch of women. But in reality, retrosexual to me, it's just basing off the word metrosexual, which is someone that cares about his looks, and cares about how he dresses, how make sure everything looks nice. I just do it so I look like I'm from the 80s.
Yeah, I gotta ask you this, man. The slippers you posted the other day, how did you get those?
Sorry, what was that?
The slippers?
Oh, so those are actually Vans.
Really?
Yes, and those were a birthday gift from one of the Platinum Honeys, Ava Everett, also my girlfriend.
Oh, yeah?
I guess technically one of my girlfriends, but yeah, they were a surprise gift for me. You can actually get your own. Not necessarily those, but you can make your own custom Vans. If you go on Vans website, Vans.com, you can get a custom pair with anything you want, as long as it's not like a copywritten logo or design. You can get a shoe with your face on it, or maybe with your wrestling logo as well.
Yeah. I was so surprised. I'm are we gonna see these at the show? Because you have so much merchandise. Do you come up with all that stuff by yourself?
So that's another big thing for me. A lot of other wrestlers ask me where I come up with my ideas for merch, and honestly, I just think of things that nobody else sells. So I don't see anyone selling glasses, so I started selling those glasses that I come out to the ring with. I didn't see many people selling fanny packs, so I started selling fanny packs. No one sells trading cards, so trading cards. And I started doing lapel pins that look like Hasbro figures. So I'm still trying to keep it retro. I even sell Pogs from, remember the old Pogs and the Slammers and stuff? I sell Pogs with my face on it. So I just keep trying to, I look at other merchandise tables and I say, what aren't people selling? So obviously I'm going to have your t-shirts and your 8x10s, maybe hats, because, fans want to support you and wear you and promote you. But then there are those other items, those nostalgia items like trading cards or a Pog or a little lapel pin that not many people have. Plus, I also like to have variety. I feel like my fans are very variety-based. So if I have 12 different items, which that's more than I have, but I'll use it as an example. If I have 12 different items, little Jimmy might only have, $5 on him. He'll still be able to buy something and still be able to support me, even though it's not a T-shirt. And then, if Uncle Bob comes over and he happens to have $20, he can support me in a different way, maybe buying a shirt or buying a fanny pack. So I just like to be able to have a nice selection, so any fan with any amount of money will be able to, support me somewhere, somehow.
Nice. And you kind of touched on this a little bit. The Platinum Honeys. Where did you find them? The Platinum Honeys at, and how did you team up with them?
They actually started training at the wrestling school that I go to, the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Head trainer Brian Fury. Ava Everett began training August last year, and then Angel St. Clair began training like October, 2 months later. And then around March, I already, this past year, this year, I started doing the retro gimmick, obviously in January. And they have this big show at my home promotion, Chaotic Wrestling, called Cold Fury. It's like their WrestleMania. And that's when I was going to debut the character there. Before that, I had the retro look, but I was still just doing what I was doing before to play into, obviously, the storyline or whatever. But that was going to be the coming out party for Retrosexual AG. And I wanted to do something bigger than just, all right, I look different now. So we came up with the idea to come up with these two blonde beauties known as the Platinum Honeys. And it was supposed to be a one-time thing or just maybe for big shows. But the office at Chaotic Wrestling thought it looked so good that they wanted to do it everywhere or on all the shows. So they became full-time with me at Chaotic, and then slowly but surely I just started bringing them to shows with me. And then I said, hey, I got these valets if you want to throw them on. Some promotions started booking me because I had the Platinum Honeys with me. So it's definitely helped me a lot. I think the entire package really sells the retrosexual Anthony Greene with the girls.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny because last time we spoke, man, you said if you win, you were going to go to Denny's. Are you still enjoying Denny's, by the way?
Dude, I love Denny's.
Yeah,
Denny's over IHOP all day.
Really? What about Waffle House?
So I don't hate Waffle House.
Okay.
It's just there's none near me. So It's a treat when I get to have it, but it's not very often.
I think you're the only person I know who likes Denny's.
Yeah.
Denny's is a good spot.
Yeah, it is on the low. It is. So, as far as your character itself as well, I know you call yourself the Uncle Jesse of professional wrestling, but were there any other influences or characters that you looked at, or in movies or whatever, that influenced how you created your character?
Yeah. Some of it's wrestling related, some of it's not wrestling related. I think Rick Rude is a clear choice. Very Rick Rude-esque. Uncle Jesse really wasn't even meant. It wasn't even meant to be like this big thing. Like, I just thought it was like a funny play on words to say I'm the Uncle Jesse of pro wrestling, and you're welcome for the Full House.
Yeah.
So it just kind of ended up that way. And I do take little tidbits, try to be as cool as Uncle Jesse, which no one will ever be as cool as Jesse Konzopoulos, and I'll be honest. But I would say those two are really big influences. Other than that, I like to take a lot from outside of wrestling, and I like to take a lot from music and Miami Vice, and just the way I dress and stuff.
Yeah. When I first saw you, I thought of the uncle from Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, Uncle Rico, yeah.
Uncle Rico, yeah, that was the first thing I thought of.
That's what a lot of people said, and I said, yeah, I'll be throwing those footballs.
Yeah. See, you can start selling footballs too. That's the next hot item, man.
Next hot item, retro footballs.
Retro footballs, see?
You're gonna put some Zubo patterns and stuff like that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about this, man. You're part of Powerbomb TV with the gimmick table, and you interviewed MJF He could be a little intimidating sometimes. I mean, how was it interviewing him?
He was really cool. I don't know if he'll admit it, but I like to consider us friends. I thought he would be the perfect first guest. One, because he's definitely making waves on the Indies, as you know. He's the CZW World Champion.
Yeah.
He was also all in, which is a huge thing. Plus, I knew that he could talk my ear off, so if there was any awkward silence, he would just keep talking. So that worked out really well too. And speaking of the gimmick table, we have episode 2 coming out in like the next week or so with Sunny Kiss. As seen on Lucha Underground as Exolicious. So look out for that too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. How did you guys know that you had such good chemistry, you and Josh?
We're best friends.
Uh-huh.
That's really what it came down to. And it's funny you say that. That gimmick table episode was that episode. Those 2 episodes in particular were filmed a week. Oh no, was it even a week? Trying to think. Yeah, it was about a week after him and I just talked about it. I told him I had this idea for like a little talk show, and he thought it'd be cool. That was on the way to like Maryland for MCW, and then that Thursday he goes, "Hey, MJF and Sunny Kiss are going to be around on Sunday. You want to film something with them?" And we were able to get a studio, someone to film it, someone to edit it within 3 days, 3 days, as well as 2 guests.
Oh, wow.
And Powerbomb TV wanted to pick it up right away. We talked to Powerbomb about it, and they said possibly, like they want to kind of see like what we're putting out there. Like obviously, they don't want some crappy, low budget anything. And then he saw the quality of what we were putting out there, and he was immediately like, "Yes, I'll take the show. Let's make you guys some money." So that was really cool of him to pick us up without even watching it yet. Fun fact about Josh, he hated me the first time we met, and he was at a training, and I went to that wrestling school to film a promo, and he was doing up and overs. This is when he was very new, like maybe like I'm gonna guess less than a year in, and I showed him how I do an up and over, and then I looked him in the eye, and I did a crotch chop, and I said, "Suck me." And that was like our first conversation we ever had. And he told me later that he thought I was going to be his mortal enemy.
That's hilarious. When we talk about the gimmick table, who are some of the guests that you want to see in the future that you think you can interact well with?
Kimberly is like top on my list. Jordan Grace, Chris Dickinson is like high up there as well. I really want to interview as many girl wrestlers as possible just because I want them to read creepy DMs from wrestling fans.
Oh my goodness.
I think that'd be super entertaining. Basically anyone, like I don't want to just interview a wrestler because that's not fun. Like I don't know if you guys watched all of the MJF one or if you guys watched this Sunny Kiss one when it comes out, but I don't really care to interview a wrestler. We just kind of have conversation. We do ask questions obviously, but those questions are just conversation starters, and we're just kind of hanging out with our friends. Like we interviewed MJF because he's our friend. We interviewed Sunny Kiss because he's our friend. I don't think interviewing obviously I don't want to crap talk anyone, but I don't want to interview someone that I don't really know personally. And that's not anything against them. It's just I don't think it'll make for a good show if you can tell that we're just asking them questions A, B, C, D, E, F, G, as opposed to just hanging out, having a good time, and shooting the shit.
Yeah, the one thing I love about you, man, on your YouTube page, you have the dad jokes, you did the pickup lines, and that stuff I thought was like hilarious, man. Like,
thank you.
Are we gonna see some more of that stuff?
So I want to. Honestly, the reason why I stopped was one, like with the gimmick change, I wasn't sure how to continue to do it, and 2, it just got really hard for me. And like that sounds really stupid, like, oh, how hard is it to film a video? But when I started the channel in November, I started it like November 1st, I had a new video. I had brand new content out every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I did that for like 3.5 months straight. And it just got really like, it like kind of took a toll on me, which is silly to say because there are other YouTubers that successfully edit and film videos every single day. But yeah, it was just getting hard, and then it was getting hard to film stuff. Like, you've been at wrestling shows, you record interviews at wrestling shows. Mm-hmm. You know how hard it is just to find like a quiet spot to interview someone. And when I put something out, I want it to be quality. I want it to be like a plain background. I want quiet. I want someone, you know, relatively smart to hold the camera and be able to film it. It's just, it wasn't the easiest task, especially trying to like scrimmage around and kind of hurt a bunch of wrestlers isn't the easiest thing to do all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Now, do you look at these things that you do as like opportunities to like do more in wrestling, maybe like commentating or, you know, even managing or even beyond that, acting or anything like that?
Yeah, so like everything I do, I kind of do it to be successful in wrestling. So like the YouTube channel, I did it to hope to get YouTube famous just so I could, you know, get further in wrestling. Yeah. I tried out for reality shows on MTV and Fox. Wow. Just so I could possibly get famous, so I could get further in wrestling, like, which is so silly to think, because if I just stuck, let's say I made it on those reality TV shows, like, I'd probably be way more famous on reality TV than I would be in wrestling, but wrestling's what I want, and it's what I've always wanted. But yeah, like, honestly, if WWE called me today and they said, we love your character, we love your promo, I want you to stay exactly the same, but we want you to be a manager, I would accept it in a heartbeat because I love professional wrestling and I knew I'd be able to live off that kind of money. Or if Lucha Underground or Impact, Ring of Honor, whomever, if they said, hey, we want you to be this, there's a really good chance I'll do it. As long as I get to be who I am. If Ring of Honor said, we want you to be a commentator, you can do your shtick, this is what we want, I'd be happy doing it. Like, I got into wrestling as just a 13-year-old kid doing a ring crew who just wanted to be a part of it. I just literally traveled in Massachusetts and just set up rings. My parents would drop me off, and then they picked me up as a 13, 14-year-old kid. And then I really wanted to get in the ring, so when I turned 16, I started refereeing on shows, just because I loved wrestling, just because I wanted to be a part of the show. And then I realized, like, hey, I could probably follow through with this. And that's when I began training and then decided I wanted to be a wrestler.
Nice. And you just talked about you know, your love of wrestling. What was that moment for you that made you fall in love with wrestling? And, you know, some of those wrestlers when you were growing up that, you know, were the ones you looked up to.
So this is like a hard question for me because I couldn't tell you the exact moment that I started watching it. Like, I remember, like, there isn't a moment I remember where I wasn't watching wrestling. Gotcha. The characters, the colorful, you know, the colorful gear, like everything, all that stuff, the larger-than-life characters is what made me fall in love with it. But what made me think I could be a part of wrestling was Tough Enough. Watching season 1 of Tough Enough, I saw however many people, you know, 12, 16 guys and girls go from not knowing anything about pro wrestling to training to become a pro wrestler. And that was the first time I ever saw like the real inside scoop of learning how to wrestle and training in pro wrestling. So I just thought that was the coolest thing, which oddly enough is why Maven, the winner of season 1 Tough Enough, is actually like my childhood favorite wrestler of all time. Oh, wow. Yeah, everyone thinks it's a joke, and like honestly, think what you want. But like watching a guy like Maven, who is just a third grade teacher in Virginia, follow his dream and become a pro wrestler, to me was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you mine because you'll probably laugh at me. So, you know, there's this picture of you with the New England Championship, and you're posing. Pretty risque. Were people mad at that? You know, like some of the guys, if they ever should ever take that from you, were they mad that maybe they have to touch that?
I don't really care, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The goal, I guess, the goal is to make sure I never lose it, huh?
Yeah. Really.
And then no one gets to touch my my vile New England Championship.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew liked that picture, by the way. He actually, I think he might have hearted that picture. I'm not sure.
I think he did heart part it, you sicko.
I'm pretty sure he did.
It's art, it's art. So, talking about art, I mean, you must get tons of fan artwork and stuff like that. I mean, how does it feel when the fans reach out to you, whether you're a bad guy or a good guy, to know that they really care about you?
Fan art is by far my favorite thing in the entire world. Whenever I get something that like blows me away, it's like one of like the most like heartwarming, cool feelings when if someone goes out of their way, like even you guys are going out of your way to talk to me for whatever 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, whatever it is, like that means a lot to me. But when a fan goes out of their way to either hand draw or somehow hand draw into Photoshop like a design of me and not ask me for money for it, but just because they're a legitimate fan of mine is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. What's the coolest thing you've gotten?
Oh, coolest thing I've gotten. Jeez. Recently, I feel bad because I can't think of his name off the top of my head. There was a guy on Instagram that made like this picture of me. I'm like holding my fanny pack. It's like one of my only promo photos that people use. Like my shirt's unbuttoned and I'm just like kind of posing. Mm-hmm. And like he made it into this like super retro, groovy looking photo. And I thought it was so cool. And then recently he hit me up again and was like, "Hey man, I'm so glad you liked it. I would love to do another one for you." And he actually did a cartoon version, caricature of me doing that sexy man pose that we're literally just talking about, and like that one's like by far one of my favorite.
Yeah, awesome. Now, do you have like a favorite match or anything that a veteran wrestler or anything has given you like great advice that like sticks with you throughout your career?
This wasn't advice necessarily given to me, but it's something I'll always like take and like use no matter what. Mm-hmm. Eddie Kingston in an interview had the opportunity to sign with TNA. Mm-hmm. Like a couple days after he did his WWE tryout, and he didn't even care what he heard from WWE. He just signed the TNA contract. And he said, "You can't be a mark for the letters. You have to be a mark for the dollar signs." Mm-hmm. And I always took that like, oh, well, that's like the truest thing I ever heard. Mm-hmm. But one of the coolest matches / moments I've ever had in wrestling was wrestling Paul London at Limitless Wrestling in 2017. After the match, I grabbed the mic and I said something along the lines of, I respect you, but I'm not going to shake your hand. And everyone was like, "Oh no, he's turning heel." And it was because I wanted a hug. I wanted to embrace a hug. And then he grabbed the mic. He started saying some stuff, really nice stuff about me. But then the promoter of Limitless Wrestling, Randy Carver Jr., surprised me with this, slid in a picture, like he printed up an 8x10 photo of me and Paul London when I was like 16 years old. Mm-hmm. From a show that I went to. Like, I posted it online and he surprised me with it, and Paul London picked it up, showed everyone, and then at the end of the promo, he looked at me and said, "By the way, Anthony, will you sign this for me?" And like, even every time I talk about it, like, I was on the verge of tears. Like, it was the coolest moment in my professional wrestling career, having someone like Paul London like put me over so hard in front of like 500 people, and then ask me for my autograph. Yeah, and
that's absolutely amazing, man. That's a pretty cool moment for sure. Your talent varies, right? Because you made your own wrestling mask, right? You sewed it.
So I didn't make that mask. I had it made by another wrestler. Made that mask for me. I gave him the Zubaz material he needed, and then he just sewed it up for me. The future plan is to have those for sale, but that was the prototype. That is a pro-made mask. That's not like a cheap, flimsy one. Mm-hmm. Like, that's like something you'd see in like Mexico or in like a Chikara quality mask.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. When I saw that blue mask, I thought that was pretty sick. Let me ask you this, If you had to pick your own guys to be in your own stable who could match the retrosexual personas, who would they be?
Ooh, number one's definitely Joey Ryan.
Uh-huh.
I think that's like the most obvious choice. It'd probably be him. I think I would have to get the Devastation Corporation Max Smashmaster and Blaster McMassive as like my muscle.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think it'd be us four. We'd be like the Four Horsemen. I think like I would probably be, the Ric Flair. If it's gonna be my stable, I have to be Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Joey Ryan would be my Tully Blanchard.
Yeah.
We'd have McMassive and Smashmaster as like my Anderson brothers, and then I think we need to have Sidney Bacabella as our J.J. Dillon.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a good stable right there. I like it.
You guys should just run through everybody.
Yeah. So, 13 years old, you said, in New England. How does a 13-year-old find out how to get into the wrestling business?
So I used to do backyard wrestling, obviously, like every other kid does. I had a trampoline, and then I met these guys, like adults, at a wrestling show, and they were doing backyard wrestling too, but like in a building, and like they weren't like weird guys or anything. My mom met them. My mom used to come to these backyard shows, and like I went to, like they told me where it was, and there's no way they thought I would show up, but like little 10-year-old me showed up with my mom, and like we just watched. So I became good friends with them. And then one of them got properly trained and ended up buying like a wrestling ring, and he ran trainings in 2006, like 5 minutes from my house. It wasn't the best training in the world, but it got me to learn how to take a back bump, and it got me enough to talk to other wrestlers, like, oh, where can I go to like help out at shows? And so it got me connections into other places to go and start setting up rings places, and that's kind of how it all started. Like I kind of lucked into it. I semi-regret starting at 13 because I don't know, like I still loved wrestling and like still was a big fan, but I feel like I was kind of pushed into like the business aspect like too early, and I didn't really get to enjoy it during like my 13, 14-year-old days. But who knows, like maybe if I wasn't in it, like during that stage, that's when some young kids like fall out of love with wrestling, and I never did.
Now on the in days where, today, where you don't necessarily have to go to WWE to be successful, what is your ultimate goal? Is that something for you still on your goal, like to get to WWE, or is that? Of course, yeah.
Yeah, WWE is the ultimate goal, but as long as I could make a comfortable living in pro wrestling, like let's go back to Joey Ryan as an example. Joey Ryan, obviously he's been in TNA and he's been in Lucha Underground and stuff, but he is mostly just an independent wrestler, and the fact that he completely lives off of wrestling, bought a beautiful house just because of pro wrestling. I think if I could do something similar to that, as long as I can make a comfortable living, buy a house, and be happy just on pro wrestling, WWE doesn't have to happen, but I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, I don't need to be in WWE, but like, to be honest, like that's every childhood, that's every childhood dream. Like you want to be Razor Ramon,
Yeah, of course.
The thing I love about you, Anthony, is that you tiptoe on being so funny, but then you also have like a vicious streak in you. How do you tiptoe that line without going one way or the other?
I think I just decided that I'm going to be like, I want to be the best comedic real pro wrestler. Like that's not saying that other comedy guys aren't great pro wrestlers, but I want to be able to kind of integrate both in the same match. Like this past weekend, I wrestled in Canada for C4, and in the beginning, I was, doing my hey ho's, full Nelson hey ho thing where I make people dance. I busted out the worm. I did like 4 cartwheels, but in that same match, I was, jumping off the top rope, going for a 450. I was hitting, cool, whatever, super kicks and diamond cutters. I am surprisingly athletic for being a white Jewish kid. But I try to integrate a little bit of both. Like, I don't want to be stuck in like a category of, oh, he's a comedy wrestler, or oh, he's a spot wrestler, or a hardcore deathmatch guy or whatever. I like to be, instead of being great at one thing, I'd rather be good at everything.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you wrestled all around. What are some of your favorite places that you've wrestled at?
One of my favorite places to wrestle was this place. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called Paragon Pro Wrestling. It was based out of Las Vegas. I loved the roster. I was friends with a lot of guys. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys to this day. 2, wrestled a lot of great guys. 3, got free trips to Vegas.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, so that was awesome. I loved that. Currently, I love Chaotic Wrestling. That's my home promotion. It really helped me become this character, especially with the girls. They do a lot of promo stuff and a lot of character work, so I think that's helped a ton. Limitless Wrestling, because they've put me in the ring with those super indie names. Like, they put me in the ring with the Ethan Pages, the Warbeard Hansons, Dijak, Paul London, AR Fox, Phoenix, Martin Stone. Like, they put me in the ring with, like, the elite in pro wrestling, and I think that got me really good really fast. Beyond Wrestling, and I love working for Beyond because they have a great roster. Everyone works their ass off. 2, the amount of publicity you get from Beyond Wrestling. They have over 900,000 subscribers on YouTube. By the end of the year, there's going to be 1 million subscribers, no doubt. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world, that I have potentially 1 million eyes on me just on YouTube alone. Plus they're on Powerbomb TV, plus the live crowd, plus their DVD and VOD sales. So I think that's really cool. Other places that I feel like have helped out a lot, there's a lot of them. Yeah, man.
That's a great thing, though, right?
Yeah.
You're all over the place.
Definitely.
Yeah, just
More
like
exposure.
it just sucks because there's so many places that have helped me for so many little reasons. Like, there's a company called Lucky Pro Wrestling. They're like the first company to like give me a push. Like, when I was like a year in, they saw something in me, and like they are giving me good opportunities right away. Then there's companies like Synergy who are giving me like cool matches now, and like letting me do what I want, and like I have 100% control over the kind of stuff that I do there. And like places like that, help me a ton as well.
Yeah, like you talked how CZW was like a goal of yours. Are there any other companies that you have on your list that you want to get to?
Yes, a ton, actually. Basically anywhere that I haven't worked. But no, like AAW would be cool. Black Label Pro. I would love to work for like Evolve. I'd love to be full time with Evolve. If we're talking major companies, like I want to be in PWG. I want to be able to work for Ring of Honor at some point, or Lucha Underground, or Impact. So the goal is to get a contract somewhere.
It's so funny, though, because like, you've been in the ring with so many legends like Hacksaw, Jim Duggan, Mick Foley, Matt Striker.
Yeah.
How was it getting in the ring with them? Was it great for you? Like to.
I will say the first 2 you said, the second 2, the last 2, like Striker was incredibly nerve-wracking, and then it was incredibly satisfying because he put me over in front of the entire locker room, and like it was just really cool. Like, he didn't have to do it. He could have just said thank you after the match, and that was it. But he went out of his way to like put me over in front of everybody. Mick Foley, like, I'm in the ring with a guy that I watched as a kid, so like I was so nervous. But like working with Hacksaw, like it was in front of like, I'd guess like maybe 1,600 to 1,800 people at a big baseball stadium, and like, he couldn't have been like more chill and more nice. I also took an inside-out bump for his clothesline, so that was cool.
Yeah. When you go and you do some research or anything like that, what are some of the 80s music and movies that you like to chill out and watch?
My favorite movie of all time is The Goonies, so like that's my top 80s movie. But when I first started the character, I was like trying to watch a lot of 80s movies and like really like see like what people looked like back in the day. So I became a big fan of the movie The Heathers.
Okay.
Obviously, I love The Breakfast Club. Like, I could just tell you every generic cult classic because it's what I like. But it's music that I feel like I've gotten really into. Like, I found that song. I use it as my entrance music most places. I use Heaven is a Place on Earth by Belinda Carlisle. And the song that I use a lot of places right now, it's called Let's Go All the Way by Sly Fox. And I feel like it came out of nowhere. And if you listen to it, I'll say it again, Let's Go All the Way by Sly Fox. Look it up. It sounds way more modern than it really is. It probably came out like in the early mid-'80s. Like, I'm going to guess like 84 to 86. And it just sounds way newer than it actually is.
It fits you because a lot of your vintage promos are vignettes are based around that song.
Yes.
Yeah. And when it comes to your promos and doing that work, do you do most of that like just off top of your head, or do you like actually plan and write out what you're gonna say and stuff like that?
Depending on like the situation, I kind of just like, there's a new promo out from CZW, and they just kind of said to me, like the guy doing the camera stuff, like the production guy, just basically told me, how do you actually feel right now? Like what's going on with you? Like, this is what we want to do with you. Tell us how you feel about it. And I just kind of went and I kind of just shot it, like one take, done, out of there. But then there's other promos where I do have to think a little bit more about it. Like if I'm in a certain scenario where I'm, quote, I'm feuding with this guy, maybe there's a certain line I wanna say about him, or something comedic, or something like an 80s reference that I can make to him. I always have a list of notes on my phone of like funny 80s references, like Pop Quiz Hot Shot, or like you're not gonna MacGyver your way out of this one. And just like I have like little like sound bites that I will say in all my promos, or I have like certain, quote, go home lines where I like to end my stuff with like a catchphrase, or like just reintroduce myself. I'm the Uncle Jesse of pro wrestling. I'm the new kid on the block. I am retrosexual Anthony Greene, or however. So I always have something in my head. Very much like just buzzwords that I know, like, all right, I can start it with this, I can end it with this, let's fill the middle.
Yeah, Anthony, you've been fantastic, man, and I hope your career continues to grow. I know Derek does too. Where can people get you on social media if they want to connect?
Okay, you can catch me on Instagram at RetroAG_, because someone decided to take RetroAG. I'm also on Twitter, RetroAG, that's it. And I'm on Facebook. You can find my fan page if you just look up Anthony Greene. You'll probably also find my regular page. I'll add you if you don't look creepy.
Oh man, Anthony, we thank you for your time, man. We thank you for answering all our questions, and
of course.
Yeah. And as for us, we're Wrestling IQ 101. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Wrestling IQ 101. Check us out on the B Plus Player Network, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe, like the episode, and we're out. You have just listened to the Wrestling IQ 101 podcast, powered by B Plus Player Radio.
One more for the good guy.